So we are done with the first part of the chapter. Now we are entering into the second part of the chapter. So here we are going to discuss about the elastic constants, which are material properties. Like if you take any material, basically it will have some properties. Every material will have some properties. So most important properties, like if you list out density rho, thermal conductivity, I'm writing down because K is symbol for many properties. Nowadays in Facebook also that post is a little viral. Okay, so the K is for every or multiple properties. That's why I just written here. So K is thermal conductivity. You can have alpha, coefficient of thermal expansion. Okay, and you have beta, compressibility. Okay, and you have Young's modulus, rigidity modulus, that is G, bulk modulus. So this is bulk modulus K. K is the bulk modulus, rigidity modulus G, Points ratio mu. Like this, many properties are there. If it is a liquid, you'll be having viscosity. So dynamic viscosity. Understand? So like this, this is Points ratio. Understand? So these are many properties. So out of many properties, there are few properties which are actually are properties of a material. Okay, so that means whenever I give a material to you, they all will have some unique values. So if you take aluminium and if you take copper, so definitely density of copper will be different from density of aluminium. Thermal conductivity of copper will be different with thermal conductivity of aluminium, and so on like that. In this part of the chapter, we are concerned about only these four constants, because in our strength of material subject we are concerned about elastic deformations and we are concerned about stresses and strains up to proportionality limit only. So we are concerned about elastic constants. So material properties which are elastic constants. So those elastic constants are E, G, K and mu. So these four only we are actually studying up here, and these are given the name as elastic constants. These are called as elastic constants because they decide how much elastically the metal can behave. So we are going to study about them here. So if you take the first one, Young's modulus. I'm rubbing the board. So Young's modulus. So Young's modulus always comes into existence whenever there is normal stress. So whenever there is normal stress, that is giving rise to normal strain. So Young's modulus will be coming into existence, or Young's modulus in fact decides the value of the output, that is strain, normal strain with respect to normal stress. Okay, now when you are dealing with this normal stress, I already told you that stress is independent, or stress is the input and strain is output, or strain is dependent on the value of stress. So if you take simple tension case, you already know that stress will be proportional to strain. So in a simple tension test, you already know that stress will be proportional to strain, and we already discussed that I have given you basic idea that the slope of this curve is Young's modulus. So you can write down stress is equal to strain into Young's modulus. So strictly speaking, this equation can be correctly written as, so strain is equal to stress by Young's modulus. So that means this equation says that based upon the value of E, based upon the value of Young's modulus, strain value is decided. So for a same value of stress, you can have higher value of strain if you are having lesser value of Young's modulus. So if you have higher value of Young's modulus, lesser is the value of strain. So higher is the value of Young's modulus, lesser is the value of strain. Lesser is the value of Young's modulus, higher is the value of strain. So for example, if you take two cases, dimensionally both are same. Okay, so area is same, length is same, everything is same here for both the components, but the only difference is Young's modulus is different. So E1 and E2 both are different here. So let's assume we are applying same value of load P. So area is also same. So we will have same value of stress. Same value of stress. So as your Young's modulus value is different here. So if you have the scenario where Young's modulus is greater than the first Young's modulus of first one is higher than second one, this implies strain in the first one will be less than strain in the second one. That is the normal strain here. So this is the correct way of explanation regarding Young's modulus. So Young's modulus decides the value of the normal strain here. Okay. For example, you take a small stone cube. Okay, you take a cube of having some dimensions like 10 centimeters or 1 centimeter like that, and you take in one hand, and you take a sponge of the same dimensions like this. So this is dimensionally same cubes. So this is made up of stone, and this is made up of sponge. And you guys know sponge is far softer than the stone. You take in two hands. Assume that in one hand I'm having stone, I'm having other hand that is nothing but sponge here. So if I apply same value of load, so as areas are same, we'll be having same value of stress. You can observe that sponge will get very much compressed easily. Okay, so for your understanding purpose, you can put a little bit larger dimension, 5 centimeters, because it will be little easy to grab in your hands there. So you can observe that the sponge will get very much deformed easily, because Young's modulus of sponge is far lesser. Understand? So that means you will be having higher value of strain for the sponge because you are having very less value of Young's modulus. Whereas for stone, though you are giving rise to same stress, but its Young's modulus value is very, very high, so you will be having very less value of linear strain. Understood? Clear? Understood? So let's go ahead with the next property, modulus of rigidity. Okay. So regarding modulus of rigidity, same explanation. So the modulus of rigidity decides the value of shear strain. So in the place of sigma, you'll be having tau. So shear stress will be giving us to shear strain, but that will be dependent on the value of rigidity modulus. Okay. So tau will be proportional to gamma, and the constant of proportionality is equal to given as g here. So this is gamma, this is g, this is tau here. So you'll be having the line having a constant slope. So we'll be having slope to be g here. So it is given actually like this. So gamma is equal to tau by g. Okay, understand? So gamma is inversely proportional to g. So if you have two instances where same shear stress is applied. Okay, so area is same. So this as g value, let's take g1 and g2. So if g1 is greater than g2, this implies gamma 1 will be less than gamma 2. After this, we'll go with bulk modulus. Just put the heading of bulk modulus. Okay, so bulk modulus. So bulk modulus decides how much volume can change for a material. So if you take a component like this, I'm going with the scenario where there are only normal stresses. So in x direction there is sigma, y direction sigma, z direction also there is only sigma. So as there is same stress in every direction, so obviously the volume of the component should increase. So here volumetric strain is actually given by the formula volumetric stress by bulk modulus K. So K decides the value of the volumetric strain. And here volumetric strain is equal to given as sigma only because everything is same. If all three are different, so it's actually given as sigma x plus sigma y plus sigma z by 3. So it is the average of all those three values. Understand? You should take average of those three values. In fact, later you're going to study the hydrostatic state of stress, where you can understand that the average of those three normal stresses will actually give rise to change of volume. Understand? And remaining values will give rise to change of shape. So right now you'll not get the complete idea. So just keep in mind that whenever these three values are different, you should be taking it as average. You're taking those three values average to get the value of sigma v. Understand? So sigma v is equal to sigma there. Understood? So sigma v is equal to sigma. So the volumetric strain is decided by the value of bulk modulus. So if you have higher value of bulk modulus, lesser will be the volumetric strain. Lesser is the value of bulk modulus, higher is the value of volumetric strain. So you can write down. Hence we have epsilon v is inversely proportional to K. So K1 greater than K2 implies epsilon v, a volumetric strain of first one will be less than of volumetric strain of second one. Understand? So kindly copy that. So in thermodynamics, you're going to study the inverse of bulk modulus as compressibility. So in this effect of SOM, especially when you are dealing with solids, it's not that much required. So one property will be there that is given the name as compressibility. It's given by 1 by K. So compressibility is equal to given by 1 by K. Understand? So compressibility is very much significant in gases. So that's why we have a special chapter in thermodynamics where you're going to deal with compressibility of gases and all. Okay. So when you take solids and liquids, the properties are not much significance. Yes, the compressibility value will be there for every material, whether it is solids or liquid, but the most significance, like at this level, when you're studying for GATE examination, so more significance will be there only for gases rather than for solids and liquids. So that's why you will not be using compressibility much in the subject of SOM or even fluid mechanics. Is it done? We'll go with the last constant and also very important constant, elastic constant, that is Poisson's ratio. Okay, so Poisson's ratio mu, elastic constants. So if you have a simple tension case, you are giving rise to stress in length direction here. So here we have stress in x direction, which will be giving rise to strain in x direction. It's very clear that strain in x direction is nothing but the value of stress in x direction by Young's modulus. But here what happens is, due to the application of the stress in x direction, there will be strain in y direction also. So the component is getting compressed in y direction or lateral direction, though there is no stress in that particular direction. So the how much the strain is produced is given by the property Poisson's ratio. So it is given by epsilon y by epsilon x. So here you should be keeping in mind, first of all, stress should be there in x direction. So epsilon y is produced by sigma x only. So those stress is there in x direction, strain is produced in y direction also, which we call it as Poisson's effect. Understand? You can copy. So definition of Poisson's effect. When stress is applied or induced in one particular direction, strain produced along perpendicular direction also. This phenomenon is called as Poisson's effect. Understand? Okay, after this you can copy this one. Okay, if you have a scenario, wait, okay, please wait. If you have a scenario where you are giving rise to stress in y direction, so obviously you will be giving rise to strain in y direction and also x direction. So here, strain in x direction is a perpendicular one that is produced by sigma y. So in this case, Poisson's ratio is equal to given by epsilon x by epsilon y. Understand? So in a general sense, we can write down, Poisson's ratio is equal to lateral strain by longitudinal strain when stress or load is applied in longitudinal direction. So after this, you copy the last one. So this, we always see the formula for Poisson's ratio like this, minus lateral by longitudinal, but the condition is load or stress should be there along the longitudinal direction. Load or stress should be there in the longitudinal direction. If you have a scenario where stress is induced in transverse direction or lateral direction, then Poisson's ratio will become minus epsilon longitudinal by lateral. Okay, so whatever the direction in which the load is applied should be coming in the denominator. Whatever the direction along which the load should be applied should be coming along with the denominator. So kindly remember, this statement, this equation or this expression is valid along with this statement only. Kindly copy that. Once over, please let me know. So if you take any isotropic material on earth, isotropic solid on earth, it is having Poisson ratio from 0 to 0.5. So it should be remembered. So for any isotropic solid or isotropic engineering material, the Poisson ratio value will be lying from 0 to 0.5. Understand? You can copy this thing. You guys can go with the question. Kindly copy the question. It's given that two identical circular rods of same diameter, same length are subject to same magnitude of axial tensile force P. One of the rod is made up of mild steel having Young's modulus of 206 gigapascal. So Young's modulus of mild steel is equal to 206 gigapascal. The other rod is made up of cast iron having modulus of elasticity of 100 gigapascal. So cast iron is having the value of 100 gigapascal. Assume both the materials to be isotropic, homogeneous, and axial force causes the same amount of uniform stress in both the rods. The stresses developed are within the proportionality limit of the respective materials. Which of the following observations is correct? So in all these observations, they are concerned, they are asking about elongations. Okay. So in all these options, they are asking about elongations. So if you see here, strain or elongation will be according to the formula PL by AE. So we see that elongation is inversely proportional to Young's modulus. Understand? Remaining everything is same here. You can see load is same in both the cases, length is same, diameter is same, so area is also same. So here we see elongation is inversely proportional to Young's modulus. So whichever has higher value of Young's modulus, that will have lesser value of Young's modulus. So as Young's modulus of mild steel is greater than Young's modulus of cast iron, elongation of mild steel is less than elongation of cast iron, or elongation of cast iron is higher than elongation of mild steel. Understood? So the correct answer for this question is C. Okay, let's go ahead. Here, they given that a rod of length L having uniform cross-sectional area A is subjected to a tensile force P as shown in the figure below. If the Young's modulus of the material varies linearly from E1 to E2 along the length of the rod, the normal stress developed at the section SS is. Here, they are given a case where the Young's modulus is going on varying from left side to right side, and that is not going to affect the value of stress. Because we studied Young's modulus and understood that Young's modulus decides the value of strain, not the value of stress. Stress will be giving rise to strain. Okay, and Young's modulus is the deciding parameter. So how much will be the value of strain produced will be decided by Young's modulus. Understand? But not due to the value that means that value of Young's modulus does not cause the change of value of stress. So here all they are asking us to get the value of stress at the section SS, where the area of cross section is A everywhere, as it is everywhere, and Young's modulus is going on varying, load applied is P, and P is giving rise to equilibrium here because P is getting cancelled. So we can simply say the value of stress is equal to P by A. Understood? So there is no confusion. There shouldn't be any confusion regarding this answer. Okay, so the answer is A here. But if they are asking the value of strain, let's assume they are asking for elongation, because once you know the value of elongation, divide by original length to get the value of strain. If they ask you for the value of elongation, you would be going with the formula of delta is equal to PL by AE in the case where throughout the length, area and Young's modulus are same. If you have this type of scenario where throughout the length, Young's modulus is going on varying. Let's assume Young's modulus is varying according to the function E of X. That means if you are having like this, so this is x-axis, this is 0, understand? So this is L by 2, this is L. So at x is equal to different values, you're having different values of Young's modulus, let's assume. Okay, so let's assume the question is given in that way. In this case, they simply said the value of Young's modulus is going on varying in a linear way. So you can derive the value of E of x. So let's see, after knowing E of x, how to get the value of elongation. So in this case, you should apply the formula integral of P dx by area into Young's modulus from 0 to L. So here what we are doing is basically, we are taking a differential element. So at a distance x from left location or origin, we are taking a small strip of material which is having length of dx, and anyways whole member is experiencing force, so this will also experience force P. So I am getting the value of elongation for this element. So differential elongation for this element is nothing but, or elongation of this element is a differential elongation, is given by P into dx by area into Young's modulus. So at this location, Young's modulus is E of x, so substituting as E of x, and this element is having length as dx, I am substituting it as dx. So if you'd like to get for the whole element, you should be substituting, or you should be doing integration from 0 to L. Understood? So if you are, understood? But if you are having a scenario, I'll come back to your question and explanation or answer of you Sanjay, please wait. So if you have a scenario where Young's modulus is not varying, but whereas area is varying, let's assume you're having a tapered rod. We're going to deal with this thing also later. So if you have a tapered rod where area is going on varying, so area is A1 here and here area is equal to A2. So in this case, your elongation will become P dx by A of x into Young's modulus. If you have a scenario where both area and also Young's modulus are varying, Young's modulus elongation will become P dx by A of x into E of x from 0 to L. Understood? So I have given this explanation so that you can tackle the coming numericals. Understood? Let me come back to this Sanjay's question here. In question, given that E varies linearly but not mention that in linearly increasing or decreasing. Okay, so Challa Sanjay here, linearly increasing or decreasing depends upon the values of E1 and E2. If E1 is greater than E2, that means if they have given those values, okay, definitely if they're expecting us to get the value of elongation, definitely they'll be giving you E1 and E2 values. If E1 is higher than E2, then we say linearly decreasing. If E1 is less than E2, then linearly increasing. So based upon the values, you'll be automatically getting that. So you should be deriving the value of E of x in this case and substituting in that integration to get the answer. Understood? So but anyways, for this question they haven't asked for the value of elongation. So let's go to the next question where actually they have asked regarding elongation. So whatever I have explained now, you can copy and you can start solving that question. I'll be waiting for your answer. Okay, so this question is easy. Only confusion will be there in terms of calculations. Kindly be careful and get the answer correctly. A slight calculation mistake. Okay, so you'll understand based upon my calculation here. Kindly notes. A horizontal bar fixed at one end, x is equal to 0, has a length of 1 meter. It is fixed at one end and it's having a length of 1 meter. Cross-sectional area 100 millimeter square. So area is equal to 100 millimeter square. Its Young's modulus varies along its length as given by E of x is equal to 100 into e power of minus x gigapascal. So E of x is equal to 100 into E of minus x gigapascal, where x is the length in meters along the axis of the bar. An actual tensile load of 10 kilonewton is applied at the free end, x is equal to 1. So load P is applied, it is given as 10 kilonewton. Is applied at the free end. So here x is equal to 1. So x axis is varying like this. So x is equal to 0 here. X is equal to 1, 0 here, okay? The actual displacement of the free end in millimeters is, so this actual displacement is nothing but the elongation of the bar. So here Young's modulus is varying, so we'll go with the expression that integral of P dx by area into E of x, and this value of x is varying from 0 to 1. So load P is equal to 10 into 10 cube Newton. So area is equal to given as 100 millimeter square, so 100 into 10 power of minus x meter square. X modulus is given as gigapascal, so E is equal to 100 into e power of minus x into 10 power of 9 Pascal. Let's substitute in that. It becomes P 10 into 10 q into dx, area 100 into 10 power of minus 6, x modulus 100 into 10 power of 9 into e power of minus x. It should integrate from 0 to 1. So here many tens are there, we can cancel them. 10 power of 4 is there in the numerator, and in the denominator we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 13 minus 6. So 13 minus 6 is nothing but 10 power of 13 minus 6, 10 power of 7. So 10 power of 4 by 10 power of 7. 10 power of 4 by 10 power of 7 is nothing but 10 power of minus 3. So this is nothing but integral of 0 to 1 e power of x into 10 power of minus 3 into dx. As you have substituted everything in SI units, E will come in meters. So E in millimeters is nothing but E in meters into 1000 or 10 power of 3. So this becomes integral of 0 to 1 e power of x dx. So it is nothing but e power of x from 0 to 1, e power of 1 minus e power of 0, e power of 1 is 2.76 minus e power of 0 is 1, it should be 1.76 millimeter. Or sorry, 2.718, 2.72 here actually, 1.718. This is the correct answer here. Roshan and Sanjay, have you checked your calculation mistake? What actually you have done? This is how you have to solve this question. Kindly copy the solution if you want, make it fast, or you can take a screenshot. So, relationships between these elastic constants. So, for an isotropic material, these are given like this. E is equal to 2g into 1 plus mu, and E is equal to 3k into 1 minus 2 mu. Okay? So, here you can understand that we have two equations. So, if you know two values and if you don't know two values, that means out of these four elastic constants, E, G, K and mu, out of these four constants, if you just know two values, if you don't know remaining two values, any two, you can easily get by using these two equations. So we can say out of these four elastic constants for an isotropic material, only two are independent and remaining two are dependent. Understand? So number of independent elastic constants for a isotropic material are 2. Clear? You can write down. Okay, so any two of those two values is independent. Remaining two are dependent on that. Okay, so may I know the answer for this question? So very good. The answer for this question is D, unaffected. If you read the question, it's given that if the area of cross section of the wire is circular and if the radius of this circle decreases to half its original value due to the stretch of the wire by load, then the modulus of elasticity of the wire B. So here you should understand that these elastic constants are material properties. They won't change unless you change the material. Okay, so they won't change due to application of load. They won't change due to any other application, any other reason. Okay, so you should change the material or you should be causing temperature change. But in our subject of SOM, we are concerned about the loading conditions, etc., everything, properties, etc., at a constant temperature. So strictly speaking, they are remaining constant. So here they are saying that what is the new value of elasticity, Young's modulus of elasticity. Okay, so the answer is nothing but D. It is not affected. Clear? So you have to keep in mind that these are elastic constants. They will not change due to the application of load or anything else. Kindly solve the next question. It's given that a rod is subjected to a uniaxial load under uniaxial load within a linear elastic limit when the change in stress is 200 megapascal and change in strain is 0.001. If the Poisson ratio of the rod is 0.3, the modulus of rigidity in the material is. So here they are given change of stress. So they given change of stress value is 200 megapascal change of strain is equal to 0.001. So we know that here the curve is straight and it is starting from origin. Okay, so this change of stress by change of strain ratio is nothing but the slope. So Young's modulus is nothing but change of stress by change of strain. So 200 megapascal, so 10 power of 6 by 10 power of minus 3. So E comes out to be 200 into 10 power of 9 Pascal. They have given us the value of Poisson ratio mu, that is 0.3. Using this, you should get the value of G. So we have the equation E is equal to 2G into 1 plus mu. So G can be written as E by 2 into 1 plus mu. If you do the calculation, in this question, you can substitute the values as it is and you can get the answer in Pascal. One way of doing that is getting in Pascal, but if you see the question, they're expecting us to give in gigapascal. Now if you see this expression, if you see this equation, here the Poisson ratio is a non-dimensional value because it's the ratio of strains. So whatever the units in which you substitute the value of G, you'll get the G also. Whatever the units in which you will be substituting the value of E, in the same units you'll be getting the value of G. Okay, so I'm substituting in gigapascal directly because I want to get the value of G in gigapascal itself. So 200 by 2 into 1 plus 0.3. So G becomes 100 by 1.3. So that comes out to be, as it is given by Ankit, 76.93 gigapascal. So G is equal to 76.93 gigapascal. So that's the value of this rigidity modulus G. Understood? That's how you have to solve this. Very easy question. Let's go to the next question. So this is easy in terms of concept, but a little difficult in terms of, or little challenging in terms of mathematical calculation. That's all. So kindly take the question, IES question from Civil Engineering 2008 paper. Kindly solve it and get the answer. So it's given that what is the relationship between the linear elastic properties, Young's modulus, rigidity modulus and bulk modulus. So here if you see all the options, there is no Poisson ratio mu. So one thing is very clear that we should eliminate the value of Poisson ratio. So using the two expressions we have, which are E is equal to 2G into 1 plus mu and E is equal to 3K into 1 minus 2 mu, let's get the value of mu and equate or eliminate. So from this we can say, so E by 2G is equal to 1 plus mu. This implies Poisson ratio is nothing but E by 2G minus 1. Now using this, we can say E by 3K is equal to 1 minus 2 mu. 2 mu is equal to 1 minus E by 3K. Poisson ratio is nothing but 1 by 2 minus E by 6K. Understood? So from this we got the value of Poisson ratio to be this one. So both should be equal. So equating both. So you can say E by 2G minus 1 is equal to 1 by 2 minus E by 6K. So this we can write down as E by 2G plus E by 6K is equal to 3 by 2. So in this one, we can remove this 2. So you can say E by G plus E by 3K is equal to 3. In this one, either E is having 1. So E should be taken that side. E is the denominator there. So 1 by G plus 1 by 3K is equal to 3 by E. So if you are having 3 over Young's modulus, we are having left side or other expression, other side of the equality sign like this. So it is not matching with any of the options. So if you check with 1 by E, also still it does not match. If you take 1 by E value also, it will not match. So let's check with 9 by E. So to get 9 by E, we should multiply by 3 on both sides. So this will become 3 by G plus 1 by K is equal to 9 by E. So that is matching with the last option. So the correct answer is D here. I hope other people also have understood. Other people also have tried. It's okay to not to get the final answer, but at least you should have tried. Okay, if you're not trying and blindly waiting for my solution, then that's not the correct way of learning at all. So your score will be far lesser. So that's not at all the correct way. It's completely a wrong way, especially for the GATE examination. Okay, so once you're done copying this, you can go with the next question. Okay, so I'll give you a basic hint or basic idea how to approach for this question here. So they have given various options. Okay, and definitely in every option Points ratio value is not there. Points ratio symbol is not there. Points ratio symbol is not there means they might have taken some. So I'm giving you a basic hint about this question here. So if you see all the options A, B, C, D, there is no option where points ratio symbol is there. So points ratio symbol is not there means they have taken some value of points ratio. So we can evaluate the value of points ratio using the condition, because whatever the condition they're given, everywhere there are minimum two elastic constants. So using every condition, option A, option B, option C, option D, get the value of points ratio. From that you can judge which option is best answer. Understood? Come on, go ahead everybody. Do it now. It is not that much easy. That's not that much. It's not that much difficult now. Okay, so may I know the values of points ratio for these four options? For option A, may I know the value of points ratio? Kindly make it fast. Okay, so option A is giving rise to 0.1, so which is not in the range of 0 to 0.5. So this is the wrong option. Let's take option B. In option B, what's the value of points ratio? Which one is correct? Minus 0.1 or minus 0.3? Minus 0.3. So option C, 1 by 3 will come because this is the answer I remember. So for option D, you will get multiple values. Okay, because they're given as G is equal to K is equal to E. If you use G is equal to K, you'll get some value, and if you use K is equal to E, you'll get 0.3. Understand? So if you use G is equal to K, what's the value of points ratio? If G is equal to K, what's the value of points ratio? Minus 0.5. So if you see here, these two are not inside this range, so we'll be striking off both of them. If you take this one, in this we observe that it is showing different values of points ratio. So first condition is giving one value, other condition is giving other value. Though this value is inside the range, as we are getting multiple values, we should discard this option. Because for an isotropic material, we cannot expect to have multiple values of points ratio. So this is also wrong option. So only leftover option is C. So this is the most appropriate answer for this question. Understand? So the answer for this question is C. Let's go with the next question. So don't be in a hurry to give the answer for this question. So kindly think, if you get some answer as an option, if you get some option as an answer, kindly think why other options are also, why other options are wrong. Kindly check whether is there a possibility that other option can be correct. Clear? Because that question is not that much straightforward as you think. Kindly copy and try to solve the question. Sanjay has given the answer, Roshan has given the answer. Okay, so I would like to give you the correct answer here. So listen properly, constantly listen what exactly I'm saying. We'll understand where actually I've gone wrong. It's given that a rod of length L, diameter D. So length L, diameter D both are given. It is subjected to a tensile load P. So load P is also given. Which of the following is sufficient to calculate the resulting change in diameter? So we should get the value of resulting change in diameter. So if you observe these options, we are given Young's modulus, points ratio and all these things here. They are given it's a simple tension. So simple tension means load is applied in length direction. So we have to get the value of change in diameter. So using these values, we should get the value of change in diameter. So here load is applied along length direction and okay, so it is not given in the question, but we should be assuming in this default way itself. So we should get the value of change in diameter along which is in the transverse direction. So we should use the value of points ratio. So points ratio is lateral by longitudinal. So minus delta D by D whole by delta L by L. So here, if you know points ratio, we can think about getting the value of delta D, but in this question, they given only length L, diameter D and load P. So delta L is not given. So along with mu, we should know delta L also. So again, if you check for delta L will comes from the formula PL by area into Young's modulus. In this one, to get delta L, we know the value of P, we know the value of L, we know the value of area because we know the value of diameter, we should get the value of Young's modulus. So we should know the value of Young's modulus also. If you know the value of Young's modulus, using that we can get the value of delta L. Using the value of delta L, so delta L and mu, we can get the value of delta T. So if you see the options, we require Young's modulus value and Poisson ratio value. Once you know Young's modulus value, then only you can get the value of change in length. Okay? Once you know Poisson ratio and change in length, you can get the value of delta T. So these two values should be known. So only Young's modulus will not help you. Only Poisson ratio also will not help you. So both of your answers are not completely right. So we need both of them. So if you see options, there is no option written as Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. Okay? But if you see option number D, they give an Young's modulus and shear modulus. So if you know Young's modulus and shear modulus, we can get Poisson's ratio. So this is the first step. So using Young's modulus and rigidity modulus, we'll get the value of Poisson's ratio. Using Young's modulus, we'll get the value of change in length. Then using change in length and Poisson's ratio, we'll get the value of change in diameter. So that is how we get the value or the answer for this question here. So the correct answer is actually D. So don't worry that you got a wrong answer, but you have tried. So that itself is basically expectation here. Yeah. So we can get the answer by taking initial volume is equal to final volume. Okay. Strictly speaking, not every material will always have initial volume is equal to final volume. Okay, in fact, no real material will have that condition before application of load. Whatever the density is there or water volume is there will be maintained. So later we're going to see those type of materials are called as incompressible materials, and that is possible only for the condition where Poisson's ratio is 0.5. So we can't apply that condition. Understand? If they have given in this question that consider the material to be incompressible or volume is constant, then we can go with that condition. Understood, Sanjay? So here this valids for anything. This valid for anything. So you should know it's not required for you to go with such type of assumption. Understood? So we should go with the best appropriate answer. So we can get the answer without taking that assumption also. That's why the answer is not according to that assumption. Let's go to the next question. So next question is not about testing your knowledge. It's about explaining the concept regarding Poisson's ratio here. Kindly copy and think from your side. Okay. So listen properly everyone. It's given that the Poisson's ratio is 0, then it means what? So which option is right? Option A suggests that the material is rigid. So in this question, it's given that the value of Poisson's ratio is 0, then what it suggests? If you see the option number A, the answer is, option E is given as the material is rigid. So the material is rigid means here, it doesn't undergo any deformation. But actually, in this episode of SOM, we are dealing with only deformable solids. And in fact, we have defined Poisson's ratio for a deformable solid only. We got Poisson's ratio as lateral strain, longitudinal strain, considering it to be deformable solid itself. Okay? Understood? But we haven't thought about taking rigid material. Understand? So let's keep this option aside. Okay? So we can't derive it because practically we don't have any rigid material. Understand? Now, if you take Poisson's ratio as 0 and consider it to be simple tension, we will have these answers mathematically here. So it is given as lateral strain by longitudinal strain. Understand? So if Poisson's ratio is equal to 0, this gives us the answer that means based upon this we can give the answer that lateral strain is equal to 0, first answer, or longitudinal strain is tending towards infinity. Okay, so in this episode of SOM we already studied that we deal with strains which are far less because they are elastic strains. So this is not practically feasible at all. Understand? So we cannot have strains, like we never have any material which will be having very high value of strain. Understand? So we will be having only one option, that is lateral strain is equal to 0. So practically speaking, if Poisson's ratio is equal to 0, this immediately implies that lateral strain is equal to 0 when load is applied in longitudinal direction. When load is applied in longitudinal direction. Understand? Now, if you see the options, so we have kept option A aside. We'll come back to that later. If you see option number B, the material is perfectly plastic. We should discard option number B because whatever the elastic constants we are using, Young's modulus, rigidity modulus, bulk modulus, Poisson ratio are elastic constants. They are valid only in the elastic deformations range. They are not valid for plastic deformations there. So the option B should be discarded. It is irrelevant here. It cannot be the correct answer at all. Now coming to option number C, it's given that there is no longitudinal strain in the material. If you put longitudinal strain in the material to be 0, you'll get Poisson ratio as infinity in mathematical calculation. So option C is also not wrong. Option C is also not correct. It's also wrong. Now coming to option number D, it's given that longitudinal strain in the material is infinite. So longitudinal strain in the material is infinite, which we have discarded because practically it is not possible. So for this question, we have the only answer left is A. So here I would like to tell you one statement that for rigid material, we just take or we allot Poisson ratio value to be 0. That's all. Understand? Practically speaking, if Poisson ratio 0 means whenever you're dealing with a deformable solid, its lateral strain will be 0 there. Okay, but whenever you are taking rigid material, we just take the Poisson ratio value to be 0. For this question, answer is A. But practically speaking, Poisson ratio 0 means this is the answer. Understood, everybody? Clear? And write down this small note point. So we take Poisson ratio to be 0 for a rigid material. So kindly copy this. So this is the way you have to answer this question, and this is the concept you have to learn when you have Poisson ratio to be 0. Okay, so kindly go with the next question. So it's given that for an incompressible material, what is the value of bulk modulus? So here, I hope everybody know what is the incompressible material. So incompressible material means, the first definition, the primary definition of incompressible material, whether it is solid or liquid, is density should remain constant. So here, before application of load, after application of load, there will not be change of any mass. So this implies you'll have volume also constant, since mass will always remain constant. Okay, so volume is constant means this implies change of volume is equal to 0. Now if you are willing to get the value bulk modulus, it is actually given by volumetric stress by volumetric strain. So this can be written as volumetric stress by change in volume by original volume. So this implies if delta V is equal to 0, this implies K will be tending towards infinity. So the value of bulk modulus for a incompressible material is infinity. Understand? So please remember that the material always, whenever you consider volume is constant, means you are in a default way taking the material to be incompressible material, which is not practically possible. Just like we don't see a rigid material on earth, in the same way incompressible material is also not there on earth. Please remember. Understand? So every material will have its properties between incompressible material and rigid material. And also in coming slides or coming concepts, I will explain to you the complete and clear difference between a rigid material and an incompressible material. For the time being, kindly please remember that incompressible material and the rigid material, both are completely different. Okay, now coming to the second one, that is Poisson ratio, very important thing. We have E is equal to 3K into 1 minus 2 mu. This gives you 1 minus 2 mu is equal to E by 3K. So E by 3K or K is equal to E by 3 into 1 minus 2K. If you substitute the value of K is equal to infinity, this implies 3 into 1 minus 2 mu is equal to 0, implies Poisson ratio is equal to 0.5. This is very important result. We got a question based upon this simple data in GATE 2017 or 18 examination for mechanical paper. Simply they asked what is the value of Poisson ratio for an incompressible material. It's numerical answer type. All you had to do was substitute the value as 0.5. Understood? So now last one is very easy. So all you have to do is get the value of E and G. We have E is equal to 2G into 1 plus mu. So Poisson ratio is equal to 1 by 2. 1 plus 1 by 2, 3 by 2. 2 will get cancelled. You will get E by G is equal to 3. Understood? Kindly remember this result here, which is very important. Poisson ratio value is equal to 0.5 for an incompressible material, and we haven't calculated. We have taken Poisson ratio as 0 for this rigid material. Understood? So for an incompressible material, we found out Poisson ratio to be 0.5, and for rigid material, we have taken Poisson ratio to be 0 there. Understood? Clear? So, okay, so it's just a basic revision regarding the concept of moment so that we can understand the concept of equilibrium very clearly. So moment or torque is basically a turning effect of a force. A force can cause linear motion. A force can cause rotatory motion also. So we are concerned about rotatory motion now. So the turning effect of a force or rotatory motion of a force is given by torque or basically first moment of force. Understand? So if you take simple pulley and force example, so pulley is pivoted about the center. If we are applying a force which is passing through center like this, it will not cause any rotation of the pulley. Whereas if the force is acting a little bit eccentric to the center, let's take the eccentric distance is R, so this will be giving rise to rotation or torque. So torque is equal to given by R into F. So where R is a perpendicular distance. Understand? Okay, so here if you have this force and radial distance R, you can cause anti-clockwise rotation also. So this force will be giving rise to counterclockwise rotation and this will be giving rise to clockwise rotation. So we understand that torque is basically a vector quantity. So we take counterclockwise torques or anti-clockwise torques with positive sign and clockwise torques with a negative sign. Understand? Clear? So if you are strictly following the Cartesian coordinate system, this is the correct way of doing it. Anti-clockwise should be taken as positive, clockwise should be taken as negative. But many people don't strictly follow this. They take reverse also. They take clockwise as negative and clockwise as positive and counterclockwise or anti-clockwise as negative. Understand? But whatever convention you take, you should use different signs for both of these. If you're using same sign for both of these, means you are going to get completely wrong answer. Understood? Clear? Okay? This is the basic explanation here. You just copy this thing here. Counterclockwise torque should be taken as positive and clockwise torque should be taken as negative. Okay? I'm going with the explanation regarding equilibrium here. So, equilibrium definition. Net force and also net moment or torque on the body should be 0.